investment for good reason into the asset value of the physical space, land development, staffing, but the guests won't really get to experience that unless they're attracted to the brand and the story you're telling.
Are you tired of feeling lost in this world of generic hotel brands? Do you dream of creating a hotel experience that really stands out, but are you afraid that your independent hotel cannot compete with the big chains? Then you need to listen to this podcast.
The strategy and the positioning isn't purely visual or purely written word in terms of your guidelines for your brand identity, which are very helpful, of course, but it bleeds into your programming, your service style, the partnerships you foster with the local community, and the amenities you want to offer or already offer.
What's up, hospitality? My name is Mauricio Schiller, and you are listening to the Schulering Hub, a podcast aimed at the independent hotelier and the whole industry that surrounds and supports them. If you are new here, please subscribe to our show and get notified or informed about our latest content. And if you like this show, like it, share it, and spread the love with your loved ones. On today's show, I'm chatting with Omar, Boubess, creative director of Studio Circa. We discuss the elements that make hospitality brands stand out. And it's not only the branding design, it's not only the slogan that they create, but it's the whole complete brand story they tell in every touch point with their guest. Now it's time to learn something new with Schulering today. Let's go to the chat. Hello Schulering, thank you for being here and engaging in learning something new today, because we will learn about hotel branding, positioning, storytelling and design. Why branding is important for your hotel, how to articulate your narrative to position your brand, or maybe the most important question here, how can an independent hotel compete with the big flags out there? And to enlighten us with fresh knowledge so you can get some return on your time investment, we have Omar Boubess from Studio Circa with us today, a design studio for boutique and independent hospitality brands. Omar, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Mauricio. It's good to be back and always great speaking with you. I'm looking forward to it.
It's awesome to have you back. So we recorded about 2 years ago, so if anyone listening out there and wants to go back then to the beginning of all this and listen to what Omar and I discussed, you feel welcome. I believe that's episode 12. But Omar, we are here now, episode 80-something, to discuss more about hotel branding, positioning, design, and storytelling. But before we engage in enlightening our audience here, we like to hear about the human first. So, Omar, who are you and are you a DJ?
No, I used to be. I used to do some music production and DJing in another lifetime.
I found your tracks, Omar. I was listening to it.
Yeah, I should probably take those down. But yeah, that was a good time in my life and a creative time, I guess. There's kind of that creativity involved with that. But now creative director, Studio Circa, which is my brand studio specifically for hospitality brands and especially boutique and independent hotels. Also a partner in a restaurant here in Montreal, as well as a partner in a wine import agency here where we bring lots of wine from the Swana region, which is Southwest Asia and North Africa, so Lebanon, moving into Jordan, Cyprus, and the rest of that region. So a lot of hospitality influence from my family as well. And now trying to help as many hospitality brands as we can through design, strategy, and positioning.
Yeah, so let me just get a little bit dive deeper into that. Like, why did you choose design and why hospitality?
Well, it's a bit of a long story. I'll try to make it as brief as possible, but I've been in the creative field for 12, 13 years now. I've lost count, but initially I was in advertising for a year at Leo Burnett, where we worked with very, very big brands, Diageo, Philip Morris, etc. And from there, I moved into a boutique branding firm in Beirut, where I worked for around 6 years. And that's where the love for design, branding, and strategy came from, because you're building a brand from scratch for the most part. While advertising, you're kind of using what the brand has to gain more customers. So that's where the love for design in that perspective came from. And hospitality has always been a part of my life. My brother is a chef. I have family who have restaurants in Lebanon, and I've been able and very fortunate to travel with my family when I was younger throughout the Middle East and Europe. So it's always been around. And when I started the company, I always thought about who are the people that we can help the most. You know, there's financial services, there's technology, etc. They have big backing, big budgets, investors. But the people who made the most difference in my life were always in terms of service and hospitality and travel. So that's where we're directing our energies, and specifically with boutique and independent brands who small teams, a lot of time, family run. That's where we think we can make the most difference and where we focus our energy.
That's cool. I love when someone has the passion because it comes from the family. You actually lived inside, so you've seen a few of the mistakes we make and the things that went right. And how is your restaurant going now?
It's going well. It's going well. We had some hiccups when we opened last year, just as with any big project and undertaking. But that also gave me another side of things, seeing the operations side. I'm more the design director of the company as well as investor, but seeing how the team is being managed and recruiting and how the service should go, all those little steps that really help me understand the client base as well is an invaluable part of being a partner there, not just helping with design. So it's a really important aspect of my learning experience, but also trying to bring that experience to my clients as well.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, living the life of the people you're trying to help probably just opens up so much of the discussion, right? There is so much you can add to them. What's the main values that you carry with your company?
With Studio Circa?
Yeah.
So, obviously we're a creative firm, so we value creativity and new ideas, but really it's service. We look at how we help our clients as an act of hospitality, the way that we communicate with them, the way we follow up and our transparency and the acts of service that we do for them. We look at it in a sense as hospitality. It's less intense, I would say, than actual hospitality. We always say we have a somewhat easier job than people who work in the hospitality industry directly with tons of guests coming in every day. That's something I respect immensely. And I think every person we work with, we demonstrate and show them that we understand how you feel and we want to make this as seamless and easy for you as possible because we know you're busy. So yeah, of course, hospitality is the category industry we work with, but we also value hospitality very much, and creativity and accountability as well. Work on one side can be very fun and creative, but we always discuss with the talent we work with that every person has a role, the same way that every person has a role in a hotel or in a restaurant, and each person is accountable to that role and excellence in that role. So we try to embody that as well within our industry and our service.
Wow. So with that, let's bring this energy and help our audience here to understand a little bit more about branding, positioning, storytelling as well. I love how you actually, when you post things on LinkedIn about branding, you always bring that guest-centric point of view. So really thinking about the guest, and let's try to see if we can help each other here. I love this podcast because I learned so much from people like you. So I'll ask the question that I have, and I hope that our audience that enjoys. Because let's start with very simple, like why is branding important at all for hospitality business?
Well, we in our field, obviously we're biased. Maybe interior design, construction will think the asset value of the brand of the physical space is more important, which it is. But we really think that the brand is what attracts the guest in the first place. So there's a lot of investment for good reason into the asset value of the physical space, land development, staffing. But the guests won't really get to experience that unless they're attracted to the brand and the story you're telling. For them to go through, whether they're going to book direct, they're going to book OTA, they're going to call you up, they need to be attracted to the brand and the story first. That's why we believe every hospitality brand should and can actually have a very unique story. For multiple reasons, there's many points of inspiration you can take, whether it's historical, whether it's landscape, geographical. You can look at management stories. Sometimes management comes in and they have their own perspective of how they want to run things. there's a lot of points of inspiration to take from. And just those points alone, workshopping them, brainstorming, and coming up with unique and uncommon ways to link and tell the story. Each hotel, we think, can and should have its own unique brand story, and that's actually what will attract the guests to actually visit your space and see your standards and the quality that you provide on site.
Wow. So like, as we start with the story, you just said it, and like there's some brand story behind it. So what are the key elements that build a strong hotel brand story, and how can we as hoteliers like identify and articulate our unique narrative?
It's a very good question. And I think there's so many ways to look at it. It will depend on a lot of factors, of course, your location and your geography and your market. But you can workshop looking at historical inspiration, like we mentioned. You know, if there's a certain, if your property is located in a certain region with a rich heritage, you can look into that history, do some reading and research, and pull some interesting ideas. You can look at geographical and landscape features of where you are. That can help tell the story of your hotel and the experience you want to give to your guests. You can look at the community, the local community. What kind of things do they value, and the ethos and kind of perspective on life from the local community. You look at your guest persona, of course. You have to understand what they value and what they desire from a visit and from their life in general. As well as you can look at your programming and how do you plan to create consistency in that experience. If you workshop all of those elements and really brainstorm and dig deep, you can really start to come up with some unique points of inspiration, linking those things together and creating a distinct positioning for your brand. An example, obviously, is from a client of ours in Belgium, still 1827 in Flanders. We went through our strategy workshops with them over several sessions, and we took a lot of inspiration from those points that I mentioned. They have the historical aspect, which is 1827, is when the building was first built, and their facade is protected by Flanders municipality and national heritage. So there's that historical aspect which is in the name. There's the geographical and landscape. So it's still the name itself, and the logo actually itself comes from a sense of stillness, which is linked to water. The region had a lot of flooding and has a lot of boulders and lakes there. So there's that geographical inspiration. And then the guest persona came in, where the typical persona is a city professional or a family who are living in the city who want to escape and experience a sense of rejuvenation and wellness. So the programming has some incredible wellness facilities that are on site, but also fostering an active lifestyle. So they allow guests to take bikes out and discover the landscape in a more active sense rather than just sitting back in a spa. So you can see some different points and categories that we mentioned previously, discussing that with a client, discussing that whether it's your team or with an agency, coming up with ideas and then seeing what's the right combination of those things to come up with this unique package that is your concept and your story.
And how does it work? So like, okay, we define what our brand is trying to say, and then how do you help? It's about designing the visual elements, or it's about the message you're saying? How do you build this story behind it?
For sure, those two are key. When you think of brand identity, you think of a lot of the time the logo, the visual style, and written copy or messaging. Those are really important, but positioning and strategy bleeds into everything else. We touched on it a little bit in the last podcast, but it also bleeds into how your staff interact with guests. For example, if you have a specific strategy, if you think of a guest at the W speaking to a staff member asking for recommendations, the way that the staff member communicates, first of all, with the guests, and then the recommendations they make will be different than how someone Amman will be spoken to and the recommendations be made. So the strategy and the positioning isn't purely visual or purely written word in terms of your guidelines for your brand identity, which are very helpful, of course, but it bleeds into your programming, your service style, the partnerships you foster with the local community, and the amenities you want to offer or already offer. So it's more than just a visual lookbook.
Cool, good answer. And how important is for the hotel to actually have this unique concept? Because the market is really competitive today, and what makes that important? How does it make an impact for the hotel to have that uniqueness?
You're right. It's very competitive now, and there is the discussion, of course, between competition between smaller independent hotels or boutique hotels and the bigger chains and flag hotels. And then there's competition within the independent boutique space as well. And like I mentioned earlier, every hotel can and should have its own story. There's really no benefit to not having a story, because hospitality is all about experience and narrative and transformation, and that is always linked to storytelling. So developing a unique concept is kind of a now baseline, because guests are also expecting it. There's no more transactional relationships. Guests want to be associated with hotels and brands that mirror their values and also are proud to refer their friends or network to and kind of be associated with, because now we're talking about hotels, but you think of general consumer sentiment, every brand you buy from is a representation of yourself in some way. So if there's no storytelling and it's very neutral and boring and there's no distinction, a lot of people will not want to be associated with that brand. So there's the general baseline of developing a strong concept. And then maybe if we want to touch on competition between bigger flags and boutique hotels, actually, I believe boutique hotels have superpower, because they can be quite creative and quite flexible and quite agile without needing to jump through bureaucratic hoops and speak to multiple departments before changing a word on a website or a picture on the website. So that's where boutique hotels really have quite a superpower. Maybe they don't have the huge budgets that other brands do, but they actually have a sense of creativity and flexibility that should be used more. And that will be actually the way to attract the guests, because uniqueness is really the point of differentiation between a lot of brands.
You touched on budgets. You touched on the competition between the big flags and the smaller lifestyle hotels, boutique hotels, right? Independents. And can a small brand compete against a big brand?
Yeah, I think yes. As a simple answer, yes. I do see there's always the risk that we see these days, especially with bigger brands buying out smaller brands, and that's a whole other discussion. But I do believe there's a big portion of the population and consumers at large that are looking for those more authentic experiences and service levels that are really experienced at those smaller properties. Brands, they have a lot of SOPs, they have a lot of guidelines. You kind of have to play within the guide rails, which is very good for efficiencies and scale and franchising, etc. But what we're seeing is more sentiment towards authenticity and personalization and kind of that unique aspect of hospitality that people are craving. So they can compete, and one of the ways to compete is through this unique positioning and how they market and how they speak. So yes, asterisk, don't need a big budget, asterisk, tell your story well and market yourself well, because people are looking for that.
If you could tell the smaller hotelier now at a kind of a step-by-step in items, how they could set up themselves to compete against a big brand, how would you list that?
I would say the first part is always the strategy and the concept. So a lot of what we discussed earlier in terms of developing the story, really understanding as well your guests and what they desire and what they value and what they need from not just your hotel, but what do they feel they need from life. If they have a certain vision, if they value sustainability, or if they value freedom, or if they value fitness, those understanding can enforce how you communicate, what kind of service and amenities you offer, how you interact with them in terms of staff-guest relationships. This is really the foundational aspect of building any successful, in our opinion, hospitality brand, is really understanding your guests, setting your strategy right. And then from there, you can build the space based on the strategy. You can build the brand identity built on the strategy. You can design and develop the website built on that strategy. In the third phase, that's when you go into actual, more tactical marketing, pushing ads, pushing social media, UGC, influencers, PPC on Google. Those kind of aspects come together, but it really trickles upwards from the brand and the positioning, because I'm sure you've seen as well a lot of Frankenstein projects where the social media might look one way, the website looks like another, and then you go on site and it looks like something else. This kind of lack of consistency breaks trust with the guest. It results in lower reviews and lack of word of mouth and referrals. So we always like to base everything on strategy first, if we can. If we're coming in for an uplift, a lot of brands already have kind of their setup, they have their space, they have their amenities, etc. But in an ideal circumstance, build the strategy first, really be confident in your positioning, build out your identity, the visual style, the kind of more esoteric things, let's call them, and then actually be able to execute that when they come to the property.
Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the show and if you're learning something new today, please consider following the show, subscribe to our channel, or leave us a review. It helps us to help more people through the podcast, and it would mean the world to us. Thank you for listening, and we're back on the chat. Wow. Let's dive in a little bit into that Frankenstein concept. I love that, right? Yes, I've seen from very closing what happens there, but that is due to mistakes, right? That's the hoteliers lack of understanding when they are building or rebuilding their brand. So what are the biggest mistakes that you've seen hoteliers or restaurant owners make when they are creating their brands?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and it's understandable why those things are sometimes overlooked. I just want to say that because there's so many things that, whether it's ownership or management or anyone else they're dealing with, that a lot of things can go overlooked. So firstly, it's understandable. But there are certain things that should be paid attention to, because we like to compare the brand asset, let's say the asset of the brand as a whole, and compare it to the physical asset, which is the space that gets a lot of investment, a lot of time and energy into it, and a lot of care and attention, which is for a good reason. But the brand, the website sometimes falls to the wayside. It's an afterthought. It's an assumption that, we have a great facility, we have great space, we have a great team, people will come. So there's a sense of inconsistency in the journey. And I think this is something we've seen not just from our discussions, but from a lot of the clients we worked with, is that some brands have a really great on-site experience on property, but their website and brand doesn't represent them. So there's this break. And that's really a key thing that we hear quite a bit. Others actually have a great website and brand experience, but they can't deliver on-site, which also needs to be remedied, because setting really high expectations at the beginning and not meeting them is also a recipe for disaster. So both need to be amended and adjusted. And it's really all about consistency in the experience. The same amount of attention you put into your physical asset should be put into your brand and marketing, and vice versa. If you put a lot of attention into your brand and marketing, even more reason to put it into your staff and training and recruitment and facilities, because high expectations and low results is a surefire way to fail. The opposite way, when it's low expectations at the beginning and then they actually are exceeded on property, is a better option of the two. But we like to have high expectations and meeting those and surpassing those on property.
Yeah, I was going to say that, that if you have a poorly designed website or social media, but great services, at least you may not be selling as well as you wanted. Maybe your rate is not as high as it could be, just because of the digital experience. But when you get that delivery, at least you get good reviews, because people are not expecting much. And when you invest a lot in the marketing in your website, and you have that sleek, beautifully designed website, your social media says amazing things, you create that high expectation. And if you cannot deliver, you're going to hear and you're going to feel that on TripAdvisor, you're going to feel that on Google. So amazing point that you made there, Omar. We discussed that last time, didn't we?
Yeah, we touched on it last time, and we recognize that we work a lot on the front end in the discovery and research phase. That's where we think we can have the most impact, because that's where the conversion happens. And like you said, maybe if you have a subpar website and brand, you're not converting as much, but your reviews on the back end, because of the people who do visit, will give you higher reviews, which is a good signal. But what would you do if you had more conversions from the beginning and you kept that high standard on site? Your profits would be through the roof, and you'd have more and more reviews and positive word of mouth. So we always say, why leave it to chance? Why would you leave the point where the transaction takes place? Why would you leave that to chance? You've put so much money and so much energy into staffing and training and construction, land development, all that. why leave that point to chance? That's kind of how we like to think about things and ask those questions.
Yeah, but like when I have some conversations with hoteliers, independent hoteliers, and I speak about branding and the storytelling, and I try to show to them like how the big brands do and why they do that. There is a reason behind, and they normally reply to me, yeah, but like they are big, they have the budget, and like, I can't compare to them. So can you give some real examples of some independent brands that are doing a great job on telling their stories out there, so our listeners here can refer to them as well?
For sure. I'll mention a few now, and if you need an extensive list, I can definitely send that to you as references. I have a big catalog of references specifically for those purposes as well, to discuss with clients, and also for our own research and benchmarking to see and reference what people are doing. So one of them that I really, really like is Gleneagles in Scotland. And they are kind of an estate, and they have a really rich heritage and history. They're 100 years in operation now this year in 2024. And the way that we like to look at something or a hospitality brand that works is we look at it as a unified experience. So when we see their website and we see firstly how the experience is on the website, we see how their copywriting affects us and the story that they're telling. We see their brand visual style. We look at their service offerings and their amenities and their packages and how they are packaged. Naming a package romantic weekend versus naming it something else that's more branded makes a huge difference. And they're a really good example. If you look at their website, it feels right and natural for them, and you immediately can tell what they're about. So Gleneagles in Scotland is one that I follow the marketing director on LinkedIn. I see everything that they're doing, and it's incredible. They've released books on property. They have really interesting experiences for the kids on site, like exploration, using branded maps and collecting tokens and hunting. It's just a very consistent experience that's, under one umbrella, you don't see anything that's out of place. Mm-hmm. And that's how we like to look at the brand as a whole. Another one it's called Sonnet, Grand Hotel Sonnet, SON_NET in Palma, in Mallorca. Same idea, very well-executed website, well-branded. The copywriting tells the story. It talks about the history and the heritage, the aspects of sustainability. They have a vineyard where they grow Malvasia. They have gardens. It's a really well put together package that, again, nothing is out of place, and it's actually meeting and exceeding what I think modern guests are looking for in terms of design, understanding, language, and storytelling. So those are two that, off the top of my head, I think I can think of that do that. One more I would say that's a bit out of the ordinary is it's called the Venice Hotel, which is Venice, Italy. And why I like their approach is that they're mixing the modern with the classical. So they have a really interesting website layout. It breaks from the traditional style, let's say, that's CRO optimized and all that. But I think it speaks to the design understanding of the potentially younger guest who isn't confused about where to hit book and where to navigate and things like that. So they understand that their guest is potentially younger, and they've kind of broken up the style of the website, but it's still a very interesting experience, and it's worth looking at. It's VeniceVenice.com to show you a little bit of a different direction for what a hotel can actually do on their website.
That's awesome. I'll put the links on the notes. I want to actually go there and experience it myself. Thanks for sharing. I think that's amazing how some companies can actually think through, and what you just said, that this last Hotel Venice understands their guest persona. So they probably making a little bit more complicated, right? Because they want to target to who they know that will enjoy the experience in that hotel. So you make a little bit more complicated, make for maybe the elderly to struggle a little bit of what I'm going to do here. So I jump out to the next hotel, and they can keep targeting the right audience. I'm very curious to see how it looks like. But how can you actually measure return on investment when it comes from branding? This is one of the most common questions you probably get from the people you speak to.
Yeah, it's a good question and an important question that's worth asking. It's somewhat hard to measure the return on investment in terms of branding as an action, because branding ideally, and the activities we do should be infused throughout the whole guest experience. It leaks into your advertising, it leaks into your service, it leaks into your website, it leaks into the content that you create on social media. So it's less about we did a brand uplift and let's try to track that, because that's almost impossible. But there are other ways to look at it. And one, I'll split this up into two parts just to kind of go into a little bit more detail on the second part. The first part is we found a very interesting framework developed by a construction and building management company called DQI, which is Design Quality Indicator. And this was a framework they used to assess the impact of design quality of the built space, whether it's a hotel, a hospital, education center, etc., and how it increased quantitative and qualitative results on the business. So Hayat actually did a DQI kind of audit on 30 of their own hotels, and they correlated higher DQI numbers, so higher design quality indicator numbers, with higher RevPAR, market penetration, occupancy, what else was there, ADRs, and guest and employee satisfaction. So that's regarding the built space. And kind of as we spoke about in the previous question, your brand is also an asset. So that you have the physical asset, you also have your brand asset. And we can kind of correlate the same idea. If you have a high quality brand, and what that means is a strong brand story and unique positioning, clear aesthetic that's consistent across different touch points, strong marketing and PR strategy, and so on and so forth, you generally have a pretty strong ROI on that, just like they noticed in the design and build space. But what we like to look at with hotels, and especially if you have an uplift, you have a clear baseline of before the uplift and after the uplift, for example. You can look at, traffic to the website, total traffic to the website, and ideally comparing the same timelines. If you're comparing your high season to your low season after the uplift, there's going to be some discrepancies, but compare your high season to your high season or low to low, whatever it might be. But you can look at, traffic to the website, conversion rate on the website, which is total traffic divided by the number of bookings. You can look at time on site. So if people are spending more time on the website, generally that's a good sign because they're exploring, they're reading more, they're getting more ingrained in the brand experience, even if they don't book in that moment. Higher reviews, total bookings across distribution channels, because some people come from social media, they go do some research on Google, they end up on an OTA. So it's not just direct bookings that increase through uplifting the brand and positioning, but generally across the board. And you can also look at engagement on social as well as a good indicator of that. So high level, good design, good strategy, and good concept has positive impact on quantitative aspects of the business, financials, but also qualitative in terms of guest satisfaction and employee satisfaction.
Oh, awesome answer. Once again, Omar, thank you for nailing that. But if we move towards today going to the future, right? Let's not jump ahead to the future, but today we are in a futuristic present, I would say. We are living some weird moment in time. What are the some innovative ways that hotels are using to engage with their audience? And you can explore here the good and the bad.
Yeah, I have a very interesting relationship with technology. In our first podcast, I said technology doesn't replace brand, it amplifies it. And I still believe in that. And that's kind of the ethos that we have with the studio, is that really any kind of technological implementation that comes for a hotel should be layered on top of a strong foundation. And so everything I'll mention now after this is keeping in mind that this is not a replacement for developing your concept. This is just, if you have that nailed down, think of these things to really elevate the guest experience. And one of the key things that we look at as well is customization of the booking engine. And, that's from the actual colors and fonts to match the brand. So there's that seamless experience from browsing on the website. You actually convince them to hit book, which is a big milestone. You take them to a booking engine that actually looks and feels the part and doesn't look like it's from the 90s, which unfortunately is still pretty prevalent with boutique hotels. So there's that aspect of it in terms of customization to the brand, but there's also mobile optimization so that people, 60-70% who are browsing on mobile, can actually book. So customization of the booking engine is a big one that we look at. We see a lot of GPTs now that are being developed, not just as kind of plug and play on the website, but also some that are done with the tone of voice of the brand, which is very interesting. I think that's a interesting approach that doesn't just pull information from the website, but actually potentially gives recommendations, etc., that uses the vocabulary of the brand as well. And so that's a really interesting point. And I think marketing and targeted marketing is more and more important. We spoke about personalization and data collection and all that, but with direct bookings, you have so much information on the guest that creating really personalized email sequences or marketing campaigns on social or whatever it might be on Google as well is going to continue to grow and grow, because if you have a guest that stays at your property, for example, and two guests that stay at your property, one might have really enjoyed the spa and visited the spa. One actually might have booked a tennis lesson, for example. They're both at your property, but you can market certain aspects and packages to them that are actually different. So collection of guest data, which is facilitated through CRM and direct bookings and staff interactions, I think that personalization is going to just keep growing, because that's what we want to see as guests. And I could speak to that myself. Is I like to see something that I visited there. I had a Negroni at the bar, and the bartender noted it down. Next time I came back, they mentioned it, and maybe have one on the house. So that's the personalized, customized experience that the guests are looking for these days. And memberships and communities, I think, are now growing across many other industries as well. And that's, I believe, driven by personal values. So people like to be around people who share the same values and love the same things. And building community around hospitality and certain activities or programming that take place on the property, I think is a very strong movement, let's say, in terms of guest experience.
So when you say about memberships, are you suggesting building a small community around the hotel, or are you saying about membership of the loyalty programs that we've been offering for so long?
Both, depending on what you're capable of doing and depending on the size of the hotel and where you are now, at what stage in the business. But on the one side, building community is just, let's talk about memberships first, because that's very clear what's happening is that you're getting guest data, you're giving them perks and discounts or other exclusive access, let's say, for the membership, and you're staying top of mind, that you're building brand affinity, which is a really powerful thing. On the other side, you have actually building community without a membership program, although it can lead into that. But generally, building community is just building audience and market. You don't want to call it audience or market because it has different connotations. But building community is really focused on providing guest value that they want and them resonating and associating with the others around them, whether it's an official membership or not, and how it's actually executed can range in many ways. But building a strong community around the brand is always a powerful tool to leverage what guests want, but also to stay top of mind with them.
Awesome. And if you go to the future, right, let's think ahead. Trends that you are seeing that still not available, but that probably marketing is going towards that direction, and hoteliers, independent hoteliers mainly, should be aware of and invest a little bit of time learning a little bit more and how they could implement in their business.
Trends. I mean, I'm not keen on trends. I'd like to maybe speak more on movements, because I think taking recommendation on trends, they'll come and go, and trying to bank on a certain trend, I don't believe it's good practice on my part. But a lot of the things we spoke about in the last question about personalization, memberships, even partnerships as well we're seeing a lot, and I don't think this is a trend. I think this is a greater movement that's going to keep growing, which is hospitality or hotel partnerships with other brands, mostly in fashion at the moment, but I think it's going to move into even more lifestyle-oriented brands where people want different touch points with the brands that they love. And that's where branching out, like you're a hotel you visited, and you have that memory of that experience, but now they have a merchandise release with another brand. For example, like Sporty and Rich did collabs with Eden Rock and Bristol Hotel. And now, first of all, you're getting two aspects of this, what we like to call the extend and enhance framework, which is extending the brand beyond your guest persona. So you're getting more eyeballs on the brand. So that's the extend part. And enhance is actually validating and confirming your values. So what I mean by that is, if you are a brand that's focused on mental well-being, wellness, and health, and you go and partner with, for example, Headspace or Calm apps that are like for meditation practice, if you go partner with them and you walk the walk and you develop a room in your hotel that's specifically for that, or you give a guest a month off the apps, you're showing that you actually believe what you believe, and guests will remember that. So that's the enhanced part of that, where you're not just saying we value sustainability or we value wellness. You're taking a lot of effort and time and investment to actually do that. And you're actually getting other people to notice your brand from the other brand partnership. So it works in a lot of ways. And I think we'll see that grow to different lifestyle markets as well.
And one last question. How do you see generative AI influencing how we interact with websites moving for the next 5 years?
That's a very good question. I don't want to say I can give you a definite answer on that.
Of course, nobody can. Don't worry. Let's play a game.
Just hypothesizing here, I think having very customized web experiences in the next few years where it's built off of, for example, the geography where someone's looking. We'll change the content on the website, or we'll change the imagery very quickly on the website. I mean, now you can probably do this with images. If you have a library, it shows, the guests who noted they're interested in tennis or whatever it might be, you can show them more of that package, for example. But I think with Gen AI, I think that'll be more rapid, where you don't actually have to go hire a photographer to go take this picture. It's going to just happen immediately. I've seen some very scary and amazing things with video. Again, I'm not entirely sure how that'll affect perception of the brand in terms of generating almost real and disgustingly almost real videos, but that are not real. I'm not sure how that'll go down, but I think there's a huge opportunity there for the people who leverage it the right way to create something very special. I'm not fully informed in terms of those developments, and I don't do that much research into AI myself. I see how it can be used, but it'll be very interesting to see the next few years for sure.
I'm very curious to understand how we will interact with websites moving forward, because now it seems that we are moving into conversation, not chat, right? So we are moving to voice and answer. So does it mean that we are moving towards voice search and voice booking and getting that information being told us what it is without us watching it? I'm very curious on how is that going to happen. So that's why I ask. I love to play this game because it just gives so much inspiration, so many ideas that we haven't thought about before, right?
Sure, for sure. I think, who knows, maybe there's no hotel website anymore. If search, like voice search is going to go through the roof now, you just ask whatever AI you're using in terms of the agent that you're using. I want to book a hotel in the UK, this, that, or the other. I want this type of room for a family. I don't know if the website will disappear completely, but it might actually pull a section of the website with that content specifically to show you this is the room. And there's a map underneath it that's, maybe within several widgets that pop up. And it pulls maybe Google Maps, and then from the website, that one individual section, and then like a book now button next to it. It's very interesting, and I think that's the people who are doing that now, I think can already see where this is going. But yeah, I'm not sure how that'll affect the actual experience and the discovery phase specifically. If it will make it more streamlined or if it will make it harder to actually visualize yourself in the hotel. So I think, yeah, there's always a double-edged coin with technology.
We'll have one of the guests in a few weeks here in the on the show will be from Max AI, and Alicia, and she has developed this platform where you can interact with many AI languages in the same spot, but she really wants to break into hospitality to offer the chatbot into voice, right? So you can actually call the hotel, interact as you're asking the questions, and the chatbot really gives you the answers that you need. It is via voice, and maybe can connect you directly with the website. So I'll get all this question and discussion, ask her and her co-founder, and see what we get from them, and then I'll share with you.
Right? Yeah. Do you mean that it's gonna actually replace? It's gonna be instead of a receptionist, let's say, or is it?
No, it's just to get the first inquiries, right? So, well, what I believe, right? What I would do, it doesn't mean that the industry will do, right? But it's just to get out of the way the small questions, simple things that really AI can answer. Nowadays, you can do that already via chatbot, right? You can ask very relevant, unique questions, unique for that property, and you get the answer for that to help you booking or when you are in the stay. And it's just going to evolve direct voice, right? So you have a proper agent talking to you. I don't know how it looks like. I have no idea, Omar. As always, I'm here to learn from from you guys. So I'll ask the questions. And I hope that I can bring these answers to everyone else to listen and hear. I'm super curious.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Sounds very interesting. Curious to how that functions. It's on the website and it pulls up, or if it's a kind of generic GPT that you ask about a specific hotel, hotel policy, like the one we were talking about, the Venice, it pulls it up. What is the Venice pet policy? And then it pulls that up and you can communicate with it. Or if you have to go to the website and then pop up their specific GPT. I think that's a very interesting approach. I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
Send your questions, I'll ask you. And that was an awesome conversation. Thank you. I really enjoy once again. How can our audience get in touch with you besides going to Schulering.com?
Yeah, so Schulering.com, we have my profile up there at the moment. Otherwise, LinkedIn, Mauricio can put down my LinkedIn profile. We will be doing a revamp of our website in the next few months. So it's still up at the moment, but best way to contact me is through LinkedIn or through my email, omar@studio-circa.com.
I'll put all the links to contact you, as well as the links for what we spoke about, the reference that you gave. It was a pleasure to have you here, Omar. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you next time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again. Talk soon.
Schulering, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.